I want to talk to you about 49,272 large animals that would greatly benefit from some applied animal behavior. My talk is titled, The Effect of Lateralization on the Gentling and Training of Mustangs, or The Story of the Scary Side. My name is Patricia Barlow-Irick. I was a plant taxonomist in my younger days, and now I train animals in northwestern New Mexico at a place called Mustang Camp. Feral horse behavior has been well studied and continues to be a fruitful line of research, but the transition from wild to tame has had very little attention paid to it. I came here today hoping to spark an interest in the plight of the Mustangs. The U.S. government has nearly 50,000 Mustangs in long and short-term holding facilities across the country. 2,640 BLM Mustangs are in the care of prisoners only 100 miles from where we are meeting today. The government spent $42 million keeping Mustangs in holding facilities last year. Public sentiments prevents the government from being able to dispose of them by euthanasia or slaughter. Congress originally laid out a plan to move the younger, more tractable animals into private ownership by adoption to the horse-loving public. The FAO estimated the 2006 U.S. horse population at 95 million horses, so slipping a mere 5,000 Mustangs per year into domesticity seemed possible at the outset of the adoption program. However, the effort met with problems. The rates of adoption failure are high, and few people have the time or skill to transition a horse from wild to tame. We stepped up to try to make a difference. Mustang Camp facilitates adoptions by training the horses and training the people to train horses. We apply the science of training by studying the efficiency of intervention, and we get a few horses tamed in the process. Horses are flight-prone animals, and overcoming fear is our biggest training challenge. When we first started training large numbers of horses, we noticed that some horses were more fearful of us on one side than the other. Because these were Mustangs and had little or no previous handling, this asymmetry of response appeared to be innate to the animal. As a horse trainer, the phenomenon looked like the animal not being able to look at something that it's worried about with a particular eye. The scary side eye sees it, and the animal tries to escape and reorient its head and body. Is it keeping the human on its safe side, or is it preventing the human from being on the scary side? Horses are typically handled from the left side. Much of their gear is made to be put on from the left side. A horse that won't let you get on the left side is an immediate training problem. Here we have Serenity, a 3-year-old Mustang mare from the Hickory herd management area. She keeps her right side oriented towards me. She would be classified as a right-biased horse if she were included in my study. But she is one of the horses I trained in 2010 that made me start asking questions about asymmetrical behaviors. The boys down at Canyon City have a different style, but they have the same problems. This is John Peterson working with a horse named Sammy. Sammy's left bias, and much of the drama in the documentary is about John overcoming Sammy's resistance to showing his right side.
Come on, Sam, it's all right. Come on, Bubba. Oh, Sam. Oh, Sam. Oh, Sam. It's all right. Come here. I know.
My literature search resulted in a handful of papers on horse eye bias. The general consensus is novel stimuli are looked at with the left eye more than the right. Appetitive stimuli are looked at with the right eye more than the left. The asymmetry is predicted by the emotional association of the stimulus. Breed temperaments affect the probability of an asymmetrical response. As horses mature and are trained, behaviors become more symmetrical. Presenting a novel stimulus on the right side will result in less fear. This asymmetry is innate. Well, contrary to the agreement of these studies that horses orient their left eye on scary things and do not respond as emotionally or even respond positively to stimuli on the right, we were encountering encountering many wild American horses that arranged themselves to keep us on their right side. The Mustangs weren't as predicted in the literature, that is, more reactive on the left side and more passive on the right. If they had a left bias, you might not even see the right side, and vice versa. And if they do have a left bias, is it because the right side is even more reactive? So we asked other people who were training Mustangs about their experience of the phenomenon. I used social media to ask Mustang trainers about their experience with lateralized behavior. I asked them to answer the questions with the specific Mustangs they had trained in mind. They reported this: 79% of the Mustangs with sidedness problems did not want people on the right. That is 42 were left biased. 21% did not want people on the left. That is 11 were right biased. I asked them to rate the scale of the problem between minor and major. The mean rating of the problem was 5.7 for the left eye bias and 6.7 for the right eye bias, but a t-test on the ratings shows that the differences are not significant. I turned to the data generated from our own training program to explore this further. The training program at Mustang Camp has 26 tasks divided into 4 zones. In Zone 1, the horse finds out that the human is a food vending opportunity, and the horse learns to play the games that result in food delivery. Many of them involve targeting, which is putting a specific part of the animal's body on a specific place. We also introduce the idea of countdown duration, requiring the animal to continue the behavior until we are finished counting. 3, 2, 1. Zone 2 is all about being touched, groomed, and haltered. We teach the animal to put its head in the halter or the rope rather than teaching the animal to allow us to do it. In this zone, we do not apply any pressure to the lead. The horse allows touching, grooming, and fly spray at liberty. In Zone 3, the horse learns to follow the trainer and to follow the pressure of a lead rope. The horse gets a lot of practice staying in the correct leading position without needing to be restrained by a rope. We teach them to lead with the left side of their head next to our right shoulder. Our protocols in Zone 4 look much like typical horse training. The goals are basic husbandry tasks that every captive horse needs to know. Lead in open spaces, stand tied, load in a horse trailer, and let people handle their feet. We used our training records to ask about the distribution of eye bias in the 59 horses we trained during 2002. We had 2 criteria for scoring eye bias. The first evidence was a large difference in Task 3, look with the right and left eye. For this we measured suppression of operant response. The operant behavior is putting their heads low and necks straight in response to the request for easy. Task 3 is done with the human outside of the pen, working through a panel. The horse has to perform facing left and then facing right relative to the human. We scored the frequency of the behavior on each side. In this very safe environment, with the human outside the pen and the horse performing a conditioned relaxation task, not all horses show a lateralization that later becomes evident in more stressful situations. Therefore, we also classified horses as biased if they limited access to one side or the other during training. We looked at the distribution of biases. There were 3 groups, left, right, and not biased. Then we looked at the number of days it took to train each horse for each task, each zone, and to finish the training program. We compared these numbers of days required using median tests because of the large outliers. Where there were differences, we used the 2-key Kramer honestly significant difference test to find out which groups were significantly different. Here we have the distribution of our sample into the 3 bias groups, left, right, and neither. 47% showed no bias. 39% kept us on their left side before they were trained to be there, and 14% kept us on the right side at first. This is where we realized we had a problem with our sample. The red section contains almost all of the mares, which are also all of the horses captured from a single herd area in New Mexico, as well as all of the horses captured by baiting rather than by helicopter. In contrast, the geldings had been captured in Utah and Nevada by helicopter, held in large government holding facilities, and cut from a larger group of horses when they were loaded on the truck for shipping to us. This herd splitting technique can easily sort by eye bias. So our sample is not a broad random sample of Mustangs. This spring we got more horses from the same New Mexico herd and found higher incidences of right bias in the males as well. So we do not feel that right bias is a gender issue, but is rather herd specific. The total days required to complete the program varied from less than 20 to 130, and some particularly anxious horses have still not completed the program after more than 14 months. Most of the right-biased horses were adopted to a sanctuary near the end of their training, so we did not get a total number of days for those horses. They were, however, included in the data for most of the tasks and zones. The median for both the left-biased and the right-biased groups is 51 days, while the neither bias is 38. However, these differences are not statistically different, with a p-value of 0.19. However, when we looked at individual tasks and at individual zones, we found significant differences in 9 tasks and in 1 zone. The biased horses took longer to train in these 9 tasks. 1. Hand feeding. 2. Relaxed posture on cue. 4. Target nose to finger. 6. Target other body parts. 7. Following in the stall. 9. Touching all over. 13. Stick head in rope loop. 15. Follow at liberty. 16. Desensitize on rope on legs. Yes, but the horse trainers really want to know, does it take longer to train a right-biased horse? The Tukey Kramer test showed that the 5 tasks took longer for the right-biased horses than the left-biased horses. So if fear causes the bias, or bias is an indicator of fear, and fear prevents learning, right-biased horses might be a little more fearful about some tasks than left-biased horses or horses showing no bias. We do not know what this means in terms of the lateralization paradigm. The lateralization paradigm holds that right eye bias reflects left hemisphere activity, which concerns well-established patterns of behavior performed in non-stressful situations, whereas left eye bias reflects the right hemisphere activity, concerning responses to unexpected stimuli and controlling escape and other emergency responses. Our experience with Mustang horses paints a different picture. Eye bias, either right or left, is evident when the animal is anxious and fearful. Anxiety-related bias may be either left or right. The bias goes away as the animal becomes confident and trusting of the trainer. An eye-biased horse is harder to train because it is fearful. Herds may vary in the frequencies of right-biased horses. Mustangs can provide a valuable resource for the research of equine behavior. While the National Academy of Sciences has studied the capture and pre-capture elements of the BLM program, the Mustangs in holding are outside of their concern. The holding facilities, the animal-human connections of adoption, research and development of program improvements, etc., are currently simply outside the scope of science. This is wrong. Mustangs need animal behaviorists to become involved in the issue of training and adoptions. The horses are very willing to learn, if given a chance.